He built firewalls to keep the world out, but she broke through them with a single line of code and a heart that wouldn't give up. The world of Marcus Hale had always run on precision. Every morning he woke at 5 a.m. sharp, brewed black coffee in his glass-walled penthouse overlooking San Francisco Bay, and checked the servers that powered HaleTech AI, the software empire he'd built from his college dorm. To most people, he was the golden boy of Silicon Valley, a genius, billionaire, and the man who taught machines how to think faster than their creators. To Marcus, he was just a man trying to stay ahead of ghosts, the kind that lived in code, in data, in the places people never looked. It was a stormy Thursday night when the ghosts finally caught him. A faint beep pulled his attention from his monitor. Then another, and another, multiplying like a swarm of locusts across the screen. The black terminal filled with red lines of text, cascading warnings flashing faster than he could read. "What the hell?" Marcus muttered, fingers flying over the keyboard. He tried to override the intrusion, trace the IP, block the breach, but the hacker was already deep inside. System after system blinked out. Financial logs, investor databases, product blueprints, years of research, gone, rewritten, or encrypted behind a wall of malicious code. A notification popped up like a final insult. Marcus froze. For the first time in his career, his system wasn't obeying him. The machine he'd built had turned against its maker. By midnight, the building was empty except for Marcus and the hum of broken servers. The city outside drowned in rain. His reflection glimmered faintly in the dark glass. Tired eyes, jaw tight, the image of a man who'd spent too many years chasing perfection. Now, that perfection was cracking. He ran both hands through his hair, trying to breathe. He'd fired off desperate calls to every cybersecurity expert on retainer. None answered, either asleep or already terrified of the name attached to the breach. HaleTech's value had dropped $500 million overnight. Investors demanded answers. The press wanted blood, and Marcus, for once, had none to give. He leaned back in his chair, the silence deafening. On the desk sat an untouched pizza box, delivered hours ago by some late-night service. He'd barely registered the knock when it came. He'd tossed a few bills through the door and returned to his screens. Now, hunger gnawed at him. He pulled the box closer and opened it. The smell of melted cheese filled the room, warm, human, grounding. Then he noticed it, a small receipt folded in half under the lid, handwritten in neat, looping script. "You looked like you needed more than food. If you ever need tech help, call L." He frowned. Tech help? He turned the receipt over. A phone number. Probably a prank. Some wannabe coder trying to pitch herself to HaleTech. Still, the handwriting was steady, the tone gentle, and something about the night, about the silence and the weight of failure, made him dial without thinking. The call rang twice before a soft voice answered. "Hello?" He hesitated. This is Marcus Hale." A pause, then a surprised laugh. "Right, the Marcus Hale. You actually called." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Listen, I'm dealing with a breach. My systems are hijacked by a polymorphic worm with a rotating encryption sequence," she interrupted lightly. He blinked. "How did you—" "I saw the headlines 5 minutes ago. You're trending on Tech Feed. Rough night, huh?" Something about her tone, calm, slightly teasing, disarmed him. Everyone else either panicked or groveled. She sounded human. "Who are you?" he asked. "Liam Vale," she said, "though everyone calls me Leah. I deliver pizzas by day, fix people's broken code by night. Long story." Marcus exhaled, torn between exhaustion and disbelief. "So you're a hacker." "Ethical hacker," she corrected, "meaning I only break things when it helps put them back together." "And why would I trust a stranger who slips notes under pizza boxes?" "Because," she said softly, "you've already run out of people to trust." The words hit like a pin to a balloon. He said nothing for a long moment, listening to the rain on the glass. Finally, he murmured, "You can really fix this?" "I can try, but I'll need access. And maybe a slice of that pizza you didn't eat." 30 minutes later, the elevator chimed. Marcus opened the door to find a girl drenched in rain, holding a battered laptop under her arm. Her dark curls stuck to her cheeks, and her hoodie clung to her frame. Yet she smiled, bright, unbothered, as if she weren't standing in the penthouse of a billionaire. "Leah Vale," she said, stepping inside. "Marcus Hale." "I know," she grinned. "The Ice King of Hale Tech. Nice to meet you." "Don't worry, I won't bow." He almost smiled despite himself. "You're soaked." "You're hacked," she shot back, setting her laptop on his desk. "Touché." She powered it on, the blue glow lighting her face. Within seconds, code scrolled across her screen, fast, chaotic, alive. Marcus watched her fingers dance over the keyboard, agile, precise. He'd worked with the best programmers in the world, but Leah moved differently, fluid, instinctive, as if she were listening to music only she could hear. "What's your background?" he asked quietly. "Community college. Dropped out." "Why?" She shrugged. "Couldn't afford to keep chasing grades when real problems needed fixing. People's data, small business hacks, digital footprints, stuff that actually matters." She glanced up at him, eyes bright and fearless. "Not everything that's valuable sits behind a patent." He stared, unsure whether to feel insulted or impressed. No one talked to him like that. No one dared. Hours passed. The storm outside intensified, and the city lights blurred into silver streaks through the rain. Leah worked relentlessly, muttering to herself, decoding strings Marcus couldn't even follow anymore. He watched, not the code, but her focus, the small crease between her brows, the determination in her eyes. It had been years since anyone fought this hard for something that was his. At 3 a.m., her laptop pinged. "Got it." Marcus leaned forward. "You traced the hacker?" "Better." She turned the screen toward him. Lines of decrypted code filled it, ending with a single username. Black Spectre. Recognition flashed through Marcus. "That's my co-founder." The room went still. "You mean Evan Grant?" Leah asked softly. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "He left the company last year after a disagreement. I thought—" "You thought he moved on," she finished. He looked away. "He built part of our security infrastructure. If anyone knew how to bury a backdoor, it was him. And now he's cashing in on your blind spot." Marcus sank back, guilt heavy in his chest. He'd built Hale Tech on control, every system airtight, every variable known. Yet the one thing he couldn't predict was betrayal. Leah closed her laptop and leaned forward. "You can rebuild," she said quietly, "but you'll need to do it differently this time. Smarter, less alone." He met her gaze. Her eyes were warm, steady, not pitying, not calculating. Something shifted inside him, something that had been locked away since the day his company went public. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything to someone you trusted." The admission hung between them like a fragile bridge. He wanted to ask, but the look on her face stopped him, a shadow of her own story flickering there. Instead, he simply said, "Thank you." And for once, the words carried weight. When dawn crept through the rain, the servers hummed again. Stable, secure. Marcus stood by the window, watching the city wake up, the fog rolling off the bay. Behind him, Leah packed her laptop. "It's done," she said, stretching. "Your systems are clean, no traces left." He turned, studying her. "You just saved $1 billion company." She laughed. "Nah, I just stopped one man from losing his legacy." He walked her to the door. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus said quietly, "Would you consider staying on? Consulting for us?" She tilted her head, smiling. "You offering a job to a pizza girl?" "I'm offering it to the best hacker I've ever met." Her expression softened. "Tempting, but I like my freedom." She turned to leave, then paused. "You've got my number. If your system ever crashes again, or you just need decent pizza, call me." The elevator doors closed, leaving Marcus alone with a room full of resurrected machines and a heart that felt unexpectedly alive. Marcus didn't sleep that night, not because of the system, but because of her. Every few minutes, he caught himself glancing at the empty spot where Leah's laptop had been. The faint scent of rain and cheese lingered in the air like a ghost. The penthouse, usually silent and sterile, felt too still, too clean, without her voice cutting through it. By morning, Hail Tech was trending again, this time for the right reasons. Security restored overnight. Hail Tech bounces back. CEO Marcus Hale silent on internal sabotage. Who saved Hail Tech? Sources say anonymous freelancer. Marcus ignored the headlines and opened the internal audit. Leah's cleanup was immaculate. No residual malware, no traps, nothing left behind. She'd even left a small comment in the system logs hidden deep in the code. Sometimes the only way to reboot is to let someone else touch the keyboard. He smiled, the first genuine one in days. By noon, his assistant, Henry, burst into the office. "Marcus, you're trending for the right reason this time," he said, panting. "Investors are calm again, but—" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "But? Grant, he just released a public statement claiming he's innocent. He says you sabotaged your own servers for sympathy." Marcus froze mid-sip of coffee. "What?" Henry pulled up the article. Evan Grant, once Hail Tech's co-founder, was smiling smugly in a live interview. "Marcus Hale has always been a control freak," Evan said. "It doesn't surprise me that he'd fake a breach to cover up a product flaw. I left because I saw where things were heading." Marcus's grip tightened on the mug until it cracked. "Get legal on this," he said, voice cold. "He's crossing a line." But deep down, Marcus knew the truth. Evan had evidence, doctored or not, and the world loved a scandal. By evening, Hail Tech's stock began to dip again. He leaned back in his chair, feeling that old loneliness creep in. Every empire he built eventually became a cage of glass, beautiful, fragile, easy to shatter. And somewhere in the middle of it all, he thought of Leah. He tried calling her number once that night, straight to voicemail. The next day, twice. Still nothing. By the third day, his frustration turned to worry. Had she disappeared on purpose? Did she regret helping him? He hated that he cared. Hated that her absence echoed louder than the board's accusations. Finally, on the fourth night, he grabbed his car keys and drove through the rain to Vito's Pizza, the address on her delivery tag. The shop was small, squeezed between a laundromat and an antique bookstore. The neon sign flickered, buzzing weakly in the drizzle. Inside, the air smelled of oregano and melted cheese. A man in his 50s glanced up from the counter. "Help you?" Marcus cleared his throat. "I'm looking for Leah Vale." The man's expression softened. "Ah, you mean my niece. She's off tonight. You a friend?" Marcus hesitated. "Something like that. She helped me with a project." The man chuckled. "That girl's got magic fingers for computers. Saved my online orders from crashing last month. Try her place. She lives above the shop." He pointed to the stairs at the back. Marcus climbed them, heart beating faster than he liked to admit. The door was ajar, warm light spilling out. He knocked once. A familiar voice called out, "If you're selling pizza coupons, I already work here." He smiled despite himself. "Good thing I brought none then." There was a pause. Then the door swung open. Leah stood there in a faded sweatshirt, her hair tied up messily. For a heartbeat, she just stared, surprise flickering across her face, followed by something softer. "Marcus, you actually came." "You didn't answer," he said simply. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." She leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. "I've been fine. Just laying low. Didn't think the Ice King of Silicon Valley would notice if a pizza girl vanished." He met her gaze, unflinching. "I noticed." Her breath caught. He stepped inside. The small apartment was cluttered but cozy. Books stacked in corners, a flickering monitor on the desk, wires snaking across the floor. It was the opposite of his minimalist world. Chaotic, alive, human. "Nice place," he said quietly. "Messy, you mean?" "Real," he countered. She gave a faint laugh and motioned for him to sit. "So, you came here for small talk or another cyber crisis?" He hesitated. "Both, maybe." She tilted her head. "Something's wrong." He nodded, explaining the smear campaign, Evan's interview, the investors' panic. When he finished, she was silent for a moment. Then she moved to her desk, opening her laptop. "Let me guess," she said. "He left a trail. They always do." "You don't have to." "I want to," she cut in firmly. "You think you're the only one he burned?" Marcus frowned. "You know him?" Leah's fingers paused on the keyboard. "He was my mentor, years ago, before he became your co-founder." He stared. "What?" She sighed, closing the laptop. "I was 17, a kid who loved code more than sleep. Evan found me online, said he'd teach me, sponsor my college path. I thought he was brilliant." Her voice faltered. "But he stole my work, my algorithms, claimed them as his. When I tried to expose him, he shut me out of the industry." Marcus sat back, stunned. "And you still helped me, knowing—" "That's why I helped you," she said quietly. "Because people like him shouldn't win." Their eyes met. His full of guilt, hers of quiet strength. The silence between them was charged, the air humming with something unspoken. They worked side by side that night, the glow of her monitors painting their faces in pale blue light. Marcus handled investor calls while Leah dug through encrypted files, tracing digital footprints like a hunter on familiar ground. "Got something," she murmured hours later. "Evan planted a remote script in one of your financial servers. It auto-logs every internal transaction. If we expose that, he's done." "How soon?" Marcus asked. "Tonight," she said. "If you trust me." He didn't hesitate. "I do." She froze for a heartbeat, his words sinking in. Then she smiled faintly and typed faster. By dawn, Evan Grant's empire collapsed. Leah's code exposed a web of illegal data siphons, funneling investor funds into offshore accounts. The evidence spread across every news outlet by sunrise. By noon, Marcus's inbox overflowed with apologies from reporters, board members, and even government officials. He didn't respond to any of them. Instead, he sat quietly at Leah's kitchen table, sipping cheap coffee while she dozed off on the couch, exhaustion softening her usually sharp features. A stray curl fell across her cheek. He reached to brush it back, then stopped, fingers trembling. She'd spent the entire night saving his name, his company, his life. He wasn't sure when admiration had turned into something deeper, something fragile and dangerous. When Leah woke up, sunlight streamed through the curtains. She blinked at him, smiling sleepily. "Morning, billionaire," he laughed softly. "Morning, pizza girl." She stretched, sitting up. "Did it work?" "Perfectly," he said. "Evan's done. You did it." She grinned. "We did it." He nodded, but his gaze lingered, searching her face for the fire he'd come to rely on. "You know," he said quietly, "you could work anywhere, start your own company. You shouldn't be delivering pizzas." She shrugged. "It pays rent, and I like seeing real people smile, not just numbers on a screen." "Come work with me," he said suddenly, not as an employee, as a partner. Leah blinked. Partner? You sure your board will approve? He smiled faintly. They don't run my life. She studied him, weighing his sincerity. Marcus, I don't fit in your world. I don't wear suits or follow rules. He stepped closer, voice low. Then maybe it's time my world changed. The air between them tightened, quiet, intimate, dangerous. Her breath hitched as his hand brushed hers, hesitant, but real. Leah, he murmured, I don't know what this is yet, but I know I don't want to lose it. She looked up, eyes shimmering with something that could have been fear or hope. Then don't, she whispered. And for the first time in years, Marcus Hale, the man who built walls out of logic and code, let someone break through. The night after the sabotage felt endless. Ethan didn't go home. He couldn't. His penthouse view of the city only reminded him of what he stood to lose, and what he'd already lost. Instead, he stayed in his office, pacing before the massive glass wall that reflected a broken man, one whose empire was crumbling. At the far corner of his desk, the half-empty pizza box from Ijat still sat there. It was cold now, but it carried something he couldn't quite define. Warmth, connection, maybe even hope. When the elevator pinged softly behind him, he turned, expecting his assistant. But it wasn't her. It was Ijat, carrying a laptop bag, her hair damp from the drizzle outside, eyes determined. You shouldn't be here this late, Ethan said, voice rough. I couldn't sleep, she replied simply. You said you lost access to your internal admin systems. I thought, maybe I could help. Ethan blinked. You're a delivery girl, not a programmer. She smirked faintly. You'd be surprised what a delivery girl does between orders. My father was a systems engineer. He taught me code before I could drive. For the first time in hours, Ethan felt something stir. Curiosity. He gestured toward the terminal. Be my guest. They worked side by side for hours, the silence broken only by the hum of servers and the tapping of keys. Ethan couldn't help glancing at her, how she frowned in concentration, how the screen light reflected in her brown eyes. You found something? He asked when her expression changed. She nodded. There's a ghost partition in your main server, like a hidden vault. It's not just malware, it's personalized sabotage. Personalized? She turned to face him. Someone who knew your habits, your passwords, your work rhythm. Ethan's stomach tightened. Meaning someone inside. Her voice softened. Yes, someone close. He sat back, realization washing over him. Daniel. She hesitated. Your partner? Ethan nodded slowly. We built the company together, but he wanted to sell it off to a global investor. I refused. He said I'd regret it. Now regret was an ocean swallowing him whole. Ijat reached across the desk, placing her hand on his. Then let's make sure he's the one who regrets it. The contact was brief, but enough to set his pulse racing. By dawn, they had mapped half the network. Ijat's fingers flew across the keyboard, dismantling the hidden traps left by the hacker. Then suddenly, a message flashed on the screen. Stop digging, or you'll lose everything. Ijat's breath caught. He's watching us. Ethan stood behind her, jaw tightening. Then let him. She glanced up at him, heart hammering. He could crash everything remotely. Not if we get to the root before he does. He placed his hand over hers, steadying her. You're not alone in this. Their eyes met, intense, wordless, before they dove back into the code. Minutes passed, then hours, and finally Ijat whispered, There, the entry key. Ethan leaned closer. That's it? It's buried in a looping script disguised as a server update. If I pull it wrong, it'll erase your data permanently. He didn't hesitate. I trust you. She looked up, startled. You barely know me. Ethan smiled faintly. I know honesty when I see it, and I know courage. You've got both." Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. Instead, she hit enter. The screen flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. Access restored. The company's systems came back online one by one. Ethan exhaled shakily. "You did it." Ijat smiled softly. "We did it." For a moment, the world fell away. Just the two of them, in the half-lit office, the sun beginning to break through the city skyline. He wanted to thank her, but gratitude wasn't enough. What he felt was something deeper, terrifying and beautiful. "Ijat," he said quietly, "why did you come back? You didn't owe me anything." Her gaze flickered to the window. "Because I've been where you are, lost, alone, wanting to believe someone could care enough to stay." He stepped closer. "You stayed." Her eyes lifted to his, shimmering. "Maybe I wanted to believe again." Ethan reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then believe me when I say, I won't let this end here." But the illusion of peace shattered seconds later. Her laptop beeped in a warning tone. "Incoming breach detected. External override." "What?" Ethan started, but Ijat was already typing furiously. "Daniel's trying to wipe your network from his end. He's still in the system." "How is that possible?" "He must have installed a remote command channel before he left." "Can we stop it?" "I can try, but I'll need to access the data center directly. Remote control isn't enough." Ethan grabbed his coat. "Then we go." She blinked. "Go? Now?" "Yes. The backup servers are across town. If he deletes that data, we lose everything. Proof, evidence, everything." Without hesitation, Ijat closed her laptop and followed him out into the rain. They sped through the city in silence, tension thick between them. At one point, lightning illuminated the skyline, and Ethan saw the determination in her face. "Why are you risking yourself for this?" he asked over the sound of thunder. She turned to him. "Because someone once gave up on me when things got hard. I promised myself I'd never do that to anyone else." Ethan didn't reply, but his chest ached with admiration, and something softer he didn't dare name. When they reached the data center, alarms were already blaring. Red lights flashed across the glass hallway. The air buzzed with electricity. Ijat ran to the main console, logging in manually. "He's here. His signature. He's trying to burn the logs." Ethan moved behind her, eyes narrowing. "Can we isolate him?" "I think so, but I need you to cut the external link. Over there." She pointed toward a metal panel. He ripped it open, sparks flying. "Done!" Her fingers flew across the keys. "Now or never." For a moment, the screen went black. Then, lines of code appeared, scrolling fast. And finally, a blinking message. "Access revoked." They'd locked Daniel out. Ijat slumped back in relief, exhaling. "It's over." Ethan knelt beside her. "You did it again." She looked at him tiredly. "We did it. Together." Their faces were inches apart now. Her lips trembled slightly from the cold. "Thank you," he whispered. "You don't have to." But before she could finish, Ethan leaned forward, gently, carefully, pressing his forehead against hers. Not a kiss. Not yet. But a promise. "I'm not letting you walk away again," he said softly. Her eyes glistened. "Then don't." That night, as rain poured against the data center glass, they stood side by side, survivors of chaos, bound by more than just shared danger. For Ethan, it wasn't just his company that had been restored. It was his faith, in people, in second chances, in love. And for Ijat, it was the first time in years she felt seen, valued, wanted. Neither of them said the words yet, but they didn't have to. Because sometimes, love doesn't need to be spoken. It just needs to be proven. The storm that had shaken the city all night faded into a pale, golden dawn. Outside the glass walls of the data center, the clouds began to clear. But inside, silence lingered. Ethan and Ijat sat on the cold floor beside the humming servers, their exhaustion hanging heavy yet sweet. For the first time in years, Ethan wasn't thinking about profits, deals, or deadlines. He was thinking about her, the girl who Dee walked into his life with a pizza box and rewrote his fate line by line. She was staring at the monitors, still alert, her hands folded in her lap. "You should rest," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "You saved my company. I think you earned the right to tell me that." Her lips curved, but her eyes didn't leave the glowing screen. "You're not out of danger yet, Ethan. Daniel's kind of people don't stop after losing once." He leaned closer, voice low. "Then I guess it's good I'm not alone anymore." She froze, not because of his words, but because of the truth in them. He meant it, every word. Ethan Laim, the untouchable CEO who'd built walls taller than his own skyscraper, was now looking at her as if she was the only thing that mattered. "Ijat," he said softly, "you didn't just fix my system. You fixed me." Her breath caught. "Ethan." "I mean it. I spent years coding every part of my life. No errors, no feelings, no flaws. And then you walked in with coffee stains on your shirt and the wild idea that I could still be saved." She laughed weakly. "You make it sound like I'm some kind of superhero." "You are," he said, his gaze unwavering. "You just wear a delivery jacket instead of a cape." Hours later, the police arrived with digital evidence Ethan had backed up during the chaos. Daniel was arrested, charged with corporate sabotage. When the news broke, the media called it the Code War inside Laim Tech. But the headlines didn't capture what truly mattered, the quiet victory that took place in that cold, humming room between two souls who had nothing, yet found everything. As the officers led Daniel away, he glared at Ethan through the rain. "You'll regret this." Ethan didn't flinch. "I already did once. I won't again." And when he turned back, Ijat was there, steady, calm, her eyes filled with a quiet pride that made his heart ache. Weeks passed. Laim Tech was rebuilding, stronger, safer, freer. But something else was rebuilding too, something unspoken, growing gently between late nights and shared laughter. Ijat had joined the company officially, heading the new cybersecurity division. It was surreal. The delivery girl, now the one writing the code that protected empires. One evening, as the city lights blinked to life outside his office, Ethan walked to her desk. She was half asleep, surrounded by coffee cups and scribbled notes. "You're supposed to be home," he murmured. "I was," she said without looking up. "Then I found a data leak in the new patch." Ethan smiled, shaking his head. "You work harder than I do." She finally looked up. "That's impossible." "Not when it's you," he said, voice soft. "You make me want to try harder, to be better." Her expression softened. "You already are." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the air charged with everything they hadn't said. Then he reached out, gently brushing a lock of hair from her face. "Ijat, when I first met you, I thought you were chaos." She smiled faintly. "And now?" "Now I know you were the only kind of order I ever needed." Her heart trembled. "Ethan." But he silenced her with a whisper. "You don't have to say anything. Just stay." She hesitated, emotions spilling into her eyes. "You know, when I took that delivery that night, I almost didn't come. It was raining, and I was broke, and I thought, what difference would one pizza make to a man like you?" Ethan took her hands. It made all the difference. Days blurred into weeks, and the distance between them kept shrinking until it vanished completely. One rainy evening, exactly 3 months after that night, Ijat walked into Ethan's office with a small envelope. "What's this?" he asked. She smiled shyly. My resignation. He froze. What? Why? Her eyes softened. Because I think it's time I started my own company, something small. Maybe a cybersecurity startup for local businesses. It's what my dad always wanted me to do. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to be happy for her, and he was. But the thought of losing her again hit harder than he expected. He stood up, walked around the desk, and stopped in front of her. So that's it? She looked down. I guess it is. He took the envelope gently from her hand, then tore it in half. Her eyes widened. Ethan? No, he said quietly. You're not leaving like that. She frowned. You can't just... Ijat, he interrupted, voice trembling now. I've lived my whole life behind systems I built to keep people out. You broke through all of them. And if you walk out that door now, I'll never forgive myself for not saying what I should have said that night. The room went still. The hum of the city faded away. He took a deep breath. I love you. Her eyes filled instantly. Ethan. I love you for your fire, your courage, your messy brilliance. I love that you never gave up on me when everyone else did. And I love that somehow you found a way into the one system I swore was unhackable. My heart. She laughed through her tears. That was cheesy. He grinned faintly. Then call me cheesy for the rest of our lives. Her laughter melted into quiet sobs as he pulled her into his arms. For the first time in forever, he wasn't the CEO, the genius, or the broken man. He was just Ethan, human, open, in love. They stood there as rain tapped against the windows, the city glowing below them. She whispered against his chest, You know, for a guy who almost lost everything, you're doing pretty well. He smiled into her hair. That's because I found the only thing worth keeping. Months later, their story became something whispered around the company like a fairy tale, the CEO and the delivery girl who rewrote destiny together. And on one quiet evening, as the sky turned lavender, Ethan stood on the rooftop of Laim Tech, holding her hand. Ijat, he said softly, remember the night we stopped Daniel? She smiled. How could I forget? He held up a small velvet box. Then you'll remember this one too. Her breath caught. Marry me, he said. Not because you saved me, not because I owe you, but because I can't imagine a world where you're not by my side. Tears glimmered in her eyes as she nodded, laughter breaking through her tears. Yes, Ethan, 1,000 times yes. And he slipped the ring on her finger, and when their lips met under the fading light, it wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was real. Two broken systems finally running on the same heartbeat.